Today's topic consists of a bar in New Hampshire. This bar was called The Goat and was located in the city of Manchester. On January 28, 2023, a 22-year-old named John Delee was at this bar, and so was a 24-year-old named Timothy Pouliot. Timothy was with his two friends, Michael Mendoza and Trenton Nash. John Delee had been at the bar to meet up with his ex-girlfriend Abigail Elliott Orr and her two friends. I'm gonna pause here and apologize for any background noise you may hear, as I am in a living room late at night and I have my dog next to me sleeping. Anyways, let's get back to the episode. John saw Timothy Pouliot on the bar's dance floor talking to Abigail. He had a handgun in his waist and approached him because he was jealous. He then called Timothy a derogatory name, which is believed to have been Manchester's scum. Timothy laughed and shook John's hand, then left and went back to the table where him and his friends were sitting. Abigail and her friends followed him to this table and talked even more. Timothy offered to buy her a drink. Him and his friend Michael Mendoza found John's comment offensive and told Abigail and her friends that they were professional fighters and would fight John if they had to. Thomas and his two friends are known to have taken Taekwondo lessons together. Abigail and her friends went over to John and told him about this fighting conversation. John got really angry and confronted Timothy. He started shouting at Timothy and challenged him to fight. John then shoved him. The bar's bouncer, Brian Delaney, saw the confrontation and pulled John away from Timothy. Brian then asked John why he shoved Timothy. John responded that he had been called the B word. Timothy then whispered in Michael's ear. It is unclear what he whispered. Michael, who had been wearing big metal rings, walked up to John and punched him in the face, cutting his face. After this, both John Delee and Michael Mendoza were kicked out of the bar. As John was leaving the bar, he continued to yell and challenge a fight. John stayed on the sidewalk outside the bar while Michael headed to his car along with Trenton. On his way out, John kept shouting at him and threatened to fight him. Timothy then left as well and looked for his two friends, Michael and Trenton. John Delee continued to yell profanity despite his friends trying to calm him down. He really wanted to fight. Trenton Nash got out of the car to talk to John and his friends. John hit him twice in the head. Michael then got out of the car as well and stood in a snow map. He pulled out pepper spray and pointed it at John. John pulled out his handgun and dropped it, then picked it up again. Michael and Trenton ran away to the parking lot of a nearby Bank of America. John's friends tried to get him to leave, and Abigail screamed, asking him to put his gun down. John and his friends headed towards a nearby alley to get to his car, which was parked in the parking lot of a market basket. He then drove back to the street where the bar was. At this moment, Timothy and his friends had alerted the bar staff that John had a handgun and posed danger. They had already called the police when John came back. John found Timothy and his friends and pulled out his handgun. He fired at Timothy 9 times. Timothy was injured and slowly fell to the ground. John then continued shooting afterwards. As these shots were fired, people fled the area. One bullet hit Timothy's hand, the other in his armpit, another in his shoulder, and 5 others in his back. As Timothy bled to death, John fled the scene. However, he did not flee that far. This was just before 1 a.m. The police were already there because they had been called and stopped him. John was then placed on handcuffs and arrested. Emergency personnel arrived, and Timothy was pronounced dead at the scene. Timothy Pouliot's body was taken to the medical examiner's office in Concord, New Hampshire, where examiner Andrew Thomas collected evidence from his body. The cause of death was ruled as blood loss from gunshot wounds. After being arrested, John was processed at the Manchester police station and claimed that he shot in a form of self-defense. He was then booked into the Valley Street Jail, which is run by the city's county, on charges of second-degree murder and reckless conduct. John was at first ordered to remain in jail until a state district judge set bond for him. However, he was denied this bond weeks later, which meant that he would remain in jail to await trial. John Delee pleaded not guilty to those 2 felony charges he was facing. Due to the constant confrontations, the case was ordered to be shown to a grand jury in order to confirm the charges. In April 2023, a Hillsborough County grand jury indicted John Delee, confirming those 2 charges, second-degree murder and reckless conduct. However, with this indictment, an extra charge of second-degree murder was as well filed. He appeared for another hearing on April 18th for that extra charge. This was a chance to be granted bond at least on this charge. However, this bond was denied as well. The following month, he informed the court that he'd be maintaining his not guilty pleas, and the bond continued to be set to none. This case was prosecuted by State Attorney Rachel Harrington. The defense attorney in charge of representing John Delee was Benjamin Faulkner. After various hearings, John was found competent to stand trial and refused to take any plea deal. He was put on trial on November 28, 2023. It took only 1 day to seat the jury. The following day, jurors were taken to the scene where the crime happened. The defense claimed that the shooting was done in a form of self-defense, and the prosecution objected to this claim. Surveillance footage was shown of the shooting as well, and witnesses were called to testify. On December 4, 2023, the jury reached a verdict. They believed that John Delee shot Timothy Pouliot as an act of intentional violence and not self-defense. They found him guilty on both second-degree murder charges and a third reckless conduct charge. The defense filed a motion of acquittal, but it was denied the following month. As he was ordered to remain in jail even after his conviction, his sentencing date was set for March 8, 2024. The judge in the case chose to have John Delee only be sentenced for 1 second-degree murder charge and not both of them, in order to be fair and not biased. On this day, many testified in John Delee's sentencing. Assistant Prosecutor John Formella described this shooting as an execution-style murder. The father of Timothy forgave John and read many Bible verses. However, he did describe how John has ruined his life and probably did not read the law well before purchasing a firearm. The mother of Timothy sobbed during the hearing and detailed her experience learning about the incident. She called John names such as coward, murderer, white scum, and white trash. Timothy's grandma described how John took the father of Timothy's daughter and the impact it's had on her. The spouse of Timothy described the night that she learned about her partner's death. She claimed that she and her family had been receiving death threats from those supporting John Delee, and that they had to flee the area. One of the Pouliot family members spoke about how wonderful her memories with Timothy were. Another family friend mentioned the harm that they have all endured due to this tragic incident. A third family friend discussed the strong bond that Timothy had with her, and even showed a voice recording with her phone of Timothy when he spoke positively about the love from her family towards him. The defense attorney of John Delee, Benjamin Faulkner, requested a sentence less than the maximum that the prosecution was requesting, so he could at least be released when he was about 50 years old. Faulkner claimed that the fights triggered were not just alcohol or anger related, there were also other factors involved, mainly from others involved in the fight. He claimed that John has only a high school education, but did spend about 12 hours reading about the crimes he was convicted of and the potential sentences. Some information from the sentencing memorandum was mentioned, which claimed that the aggressor was John Delee. Attorney Faulkner also claimed that John struggled to control his anger and had a family who would be of his support if he ever got out of prison. John Delee spoke at his sentencing hearing. He apologized to the court, Timothy's family, and his family. After a brief break in the courtroom, the sentencing hearing continued. New Hampshire State District Judge Delker called John Delee a bully multiple times and claimed that due to his size, he believed that he could always have things his way. Judge Delker did believe that Timothy was a kind person and had the audacity to speak up and act up against a bully, and as well talk to his ex-girlfriend. Judge Delker also claimed that every bully should be punished and brought to justice. He sentenced John Delee to life with the possibility of parole after serving at least 27 years in prison for second-degree murder. John was as well required to participate in counseling programs in the New Hampshire State Prison that he gets put in. For reckless conduct, he received a consecutive sentence of 15 years, but this sentence would be allowed to be suspended if he behaved himself for a period of 10 years in the prison while he served the time for the second-degree murder charge. The judge as well warned John Delee to not misbehave in prison, like what he had done 2 days prior to sentencing. Due to his lower educational status, he does not have to pay restitution to Timothy's family. He as well gets credit for jail time already served while awaiting trial in custody since his arrest. The following day, John was admitted into the New Hampshire State Prison in Concord, where he is currently serving his sentence. Thank you for listening. Please make sure to like and share this podcast to someone who may be interested in them. Until next time, goodbye.